Chapter 8. Cryptic Codes. I sat in Samuel's dark executive home office, staring at his floor-to-ceiling authentic bookshelves. I was sure half the books on display had never been opened nor read. They were purely there for aesthetic purposes. A show of splendour and wealth to own so many classic novels. I stared and stared. I had a job to do but couldn't stop thinking about Casey. We literally hadn't heard anything in days, and I felt helpless. We had no idea whether she would pull through or not. And Hunter? Well, he was in bits. Sitting at the hospital by her side for the last couple of days had left me tired and with a head full of anger and self-blame, that it should be me lying there, not her. As per usual, the resentment had started to kick in. Was it my fault? If the people who had done this to her were connected to Sarah, then it was my fault for introducing her and entertaining them in the first place. But the more I wrestled with my emotions, the more I found myself drawing back to the same selfish conclusion. If I hadn't taken on the Richardson case, I wouldn't have met Sarah, but more importantly, I wouldn't have met Samuel. The way things were, I didn't think I could be without him. I could hear the rain petering on the large glass window behind me, forcing me back to reality, the smell of dampness in the air. I sat in Samuel's colossal Chesterfield armchair behind his vintage-style mahogany desk, away from any distractions. The decor was all quite fitting with the room. It had a sense of the Oval Office where many a president had sat. I laid out Andrew Faraday's laptop and phone on the desk before me, opening the lid slowly to a picture of what looked like a happy family. I looked into the eyes of Andrew, who appeared to be sat on a tree trunk, Jenny tucked in by his side and little Primrose on his lap. "Come on, Andrew. What made you want to end it all?" I whispered to myself. Why on earth were you so fascinated with Cordelia Jones and potentially others? What happened to Cordelia? That's two people dead in the same case. There has to be a link. I needed to speak to Cordelia, but that wasn't possible now. What would happen now? Would I drop the case? Where would I go from here? I had too much information now and too many unanswered questions. Cordelia had already paid me 50%, so I could have just left it there. But then again, I felt like I owed it to her to find the truth to all this. For the moment, I had to continue. I didn't need to figure out the password. Instead, I typed in a few root commands, reinstalled software that allowed me to access the hard drive, and obtained the details of Andrew's every move on the laptop from his keystrokes, including passwords to what he opened, downloaded, and saved or deleted, and even his browser history. Sometimes even I was amazed at the technology and how powerful it was. It was as though I was now in his head, seeing everything through his eyes and memories for the past few weeks and months before he'd died. His emails didn't appear to be that strange, a lot of junk mail and subscriptions to various organisations. Only the text he'd sent to Jenny beforehand was out of the ordinary. But what I did start to uncover next completely threw me. Andrew's activity showed multiple file downloads from an external source. It could be a memory stick or a third-party drive. There were 8 in total, all of which were encrypted, which meant it would take me a while to interpret, or, alternatively, I might have needed some help from a few of my ex-colleagues. There was a knock at the door and a gentle creak as Samuel pushed it gently open and appeared in the doorway with a smooth smile. "Hey, it's late. Why don't you come to bed?" he asked as he slowly walked over and stood by the side of the desk. "I don't think I could possibly sleep. I have too much going on and—" Samuel stopped me. "Which is why you need to be strong for Casey and your brother right now. Let me fix you a nightcap and head up to bed." He placed his large, warm hand on my shoulder and briefly squeezed. My eyes looked down at it and then back up to meet his. "Please, Esme." He squeezed again and then made his way back to the door before turning to me. "Besides, I can't sleep when you aren't next to me, and I have a busy day tomorrow. We need answers from Sarah and Oscar." "Okay, I'll just finish this piece and meet you up there." I smiled. I didn't take note of whether he had left the room before I began typing again. I clicked, dragged, and restored as many files as I could. I downloaded as much capacity as I had onto my own drives, and went to close the top of the laptop, but something caught my eye, something familiar. Within one of the folders were hundreds of pictures listed as thumbnails. One in particular had caught my attention. A person's face, a pretty, middle-aged woman's face. One I recognised instantly. I squinted, trying to make out her distinct features. It was no good. It was too small. I hovered the cursor over the image and double-clicked, opening it to full screen size. There was no mistaking that this was Cordelia Jones. Now, why would there be a picture of Cordelia Jones in a file on Andrew's laptop? I slumped my head down on one side and rested it on my hand. And why encrypted so that he didn't want anyone else to see it? I clicked on another image in the same file. This time, there was a picture of Cordelia, with who I presumed was her daughter. I frowned. It appeared to be one taken at some distance, and perhaps unaware, as they looked like they had been caught a little off guard. I opened another file. This time it was a document, pages and pages of text. But the strange thing was, it was all in another language, along with strange symbols. What was the link between the pictures and the text? It was no good. My eyes were tired. None of this made sense, and I was aware of Samuel waiting for me upstairs. I slammed the laptop lid down and slumped back into the cold leather of the chair, yawning as I did so. I knew full well that I would climb into bed alongside Samuel's warm body and lie awake all night just thinking of what all this meant. Leaning forwards, I clicked the table lamp off and made my way upstairs. Too late. I didn't think I had taken that long, but Samuel was already in bed and snoring. His handsome, defined body was sprawled across the entire length of the king-size bed. The warm, cosy smell of a spiced candle was flickering away on the bedside table next to him. I quickly changed into my negligee and leant over to blow it out, sending the bedroom into such darkness that I had to feel my way around to the other side of the bed. I could have made an absolute racket. Nothing ever woke him up once he was asleep, but I still did my best to be as quiet as I could, slithering under the sheets and sinking in between his warm body and the edge of the bed. Just as I had envisaged, I lay patiently waiting to fall asleep, but the more I tried, the more I couldn't. I had mixed emotions about my darling Casey and Andrew Faraday's files. Part of me wanted to go back downstairs and continue, but my legs remained firmly under the covers. I suddenly noticed the room turn from its normal pitch black to a light flashing outside. It was that far from the main road that the house sat in darkness except for the small porch light and security lights. That movement must have triggered. Thinking it was just the start of a dream, or perhaps a neighbour's lights in the distance, I ignored it and tried to close my eyes steadfast again. There was a loud banging on the door, followed by the doorbell, and that's when I noticed the bright security lights were shining into our room like a football stadium. For someone to ring the doorbell, they would have had to know the gate's security code to be able to make their way up the driveway. "What the—" Samuel muttered. Blinded by the brightness, he held his hand up to his eyes and tried getting out of bed. I leapt up, wondering what was happening. My heart was racing. "What if it's a burglary?" I said. "Don't be ridiculous. Burglars wouldn't ring a doorbell, would they? It must be someone we know," he replied, pulling on his pyjama trousers and wrapping his dressing gown around him. Less rigorous than he had been, I threw on a hoodie over my negligee and followed Samuel out of the room. My eyes were tired and I had very little patience for a late-night disturbance. "Oh, for goodness sake, what now?" I heard Samuel say as he walked ahead of me. He was approaching the top of the stairs and could see out of the front main window. "What the fuck is she doing now, and why the fuck are they here?" He huffed loudly. I quickly picked up pace to look out of the same window, standing next to Samuel. My face dropped. "That's all we need. Why the hell is Sarah here? She has a lot of explaining to do," I grumbled. Part of me wanted to scream at her. The other half wanted to hit her. 2 police cars and 4 police officers seemed a bit extreme for one middle-aged woman who appeared very drunk, but it was a cue for me to remain calm and collected. For the time being, anyway. Who knew where the night would end? Samuel and I made our way down the staircase to the main door and opened it up, shivering. "Officers." Samuel nodded as he stepped aside from the door. It was starting to spit with light rain. "Oh, Samuel, darling, how are we?" Sarah said in a way that sounded like it was mid-afternoon, and she was just making a surprise flying visit. "Madam, if you could just please remain quiet." The first officer put her in her place, his face stern and unamused. Sarah looked annoyed that she had been silenced. I did my best not to laugh. "Apologies, officer. What seems to be the problem?" Samuel took control of the situation. "Well, it appears that your sister, Miss Sarah Richardson, was arrested yesterday in the early hours of the morning and charged with a drink-driving offence. She was released earlier today, but we received another call from members of the public saying that a disturbance had taken place at a nightclub, and we are being told that she lives here with you." He moved a little closer and stretched his head round the door as if to get a better look at the house. "A disturbance at a nightclub? Not again. Is Hugo—" My ears had peaked with interest, hoping Sarah hadn't revisited Cinco Chicas and caused problems there again. "No, no, Emma, not your club," Sarah piped up. "Esmeralda, not Emma," I stabbed back at her. "Ladies." Samuel was not in the mood for our petty arguments. He snapped both Sarah and myself a glare to halt our bickering, then addressed the officers. "Okay, thank you for returning her home. I will deal with it. I mean her from here on." Sarah began walking precariously forwards. She couldn't make it in a straight line. She had no idea what was heading in her direction with the wrath of me and Samuel. "Ah, there is one more thing, sir, before we can leave Miss Richardson with you." The officer smiled, holding both his hands on either side of his padded chest armour. "Yes?" Samuel was waiting. "Miss Richardson was telling us something about some evidence, money laundering allegations, and something about a Spanish club in London." Just as he leant in towards Samuel, his face caught the light of the porch lantern. I knew that face. I recognised it. I was confident he worked in the same team as Hunter. I'd seen him before. Sarah was standing closely behind him, a wickedly evil smile on her face, looking straight at me. "I'm sure it is all just a big misunderstanding, as Miss Richardson does appear to be very intoxicated." He looked at me and winked. "I'm sorry, what?" Samuel finally exerted. "Like I said, I'm sure it is a big misunderstanding, and that if we can safely deliver Miss Richardson to her place of residence, we will get going and leave you to the rest of your night." He stepped back, allowing Sarah a clear pathway to our door, but instead of walking, she looked stunned. Her game hadn't quite gone according to plan, and the police were on our side instead. "I see," she grumbled, pushing past both Hunter and me. She stormed through the house and made her way to the kitchen. "Is there anything else we can help you with?" Samuel asked. Esmeralda King, isn't it? I work alongside Inspector Hunter at the station. I have a lot of respect for him. We go back many years and he has helped me out in the past," he said. The other 3 officers were standing a little farther back by their patrol cars. "I understand his partner has had a bit of an accident. I wish her well, and I hope she has a speedy recovery." "Yes, it is, I will, and yes, she has. Thank you," I replied. "You're welcome. Be seeing you." They all turned and proceeded to get into their vehicles. "Sorry for the disturbance this evening. It won't happen again." I could see the knuckles on Samuel's hand turning white from his tight grip on the door handle. He was fuming and ready to blow. He didn't slam the door like I was expecting him to. He pushed it shut till it clicked and was locked, then stood there for a moment in silence with his back to me. I stood, patiently waiting for him to turn around. He didn't. Samuel kept one hand on the door and stood motionless. Moving towards him, I tried placing my hand on his upper back, but he flinched. "No, Esme, I'm not having this any more. It has to stop. She has to stop. I'm not having my family screw things up for me anymore." He stormed off in the direction of the kitchen, and by the sound of it, where Sarah was banging around, helping herself to things. Should I follow him? Should I let him discuss things with his sister? Or should I equally steam in there and give her what for? I chose the latter, but before I reached the kitchen I could hear a few choice words being said between the two of them. I hung back, leaning into the doorframe enough to hear what was being said, but out of sight so that they continued. "This has to stop," I heard Samuel say to Sarah. "I don't know what you mean," she replied. I could see her propped against the kitchen side, a small glass tumbler in her hand, frequently sipping, followed by a circling movement to swirl the ice around. Sarah looked like a small child being told off by an elder. She was nearly always the one in control, the one sibling who told the others what to do, only this time Samuel had the upper hand and wasn't backing down. She smelt like a brewery. "You know damn well what I'm talking about." He slammed his hand down on the side, making both of us jump. I had never seen this much rage from him before. "I've had enough. You can't keep blaming everyone else for what happened years ago. It's time to grow up. You're in self-destruct mode right now, and as for Esme, I'm not having you ruin this for us. I love that woman, and I won't let anyone stand in the way of that, most of all you." I didn't want to interrupt now. Samuel was doing a fine job. It was quite flattering to hear how he felt about me, and expressing his feelings to his sister, of all people. It must have been a kick in the teeth for her. "Well, Sarah tried defending herself. "I don't like your tone, Sam." "I couldn't give a damn what you like or don't like right now. What's the deal with the men who showed up at the club? That needs sorting, or I am out for good. Casey is currently in intensive care. We don't know if she is going to pull through, and I don't want Esmeralda to think I had any part in this." "Well, if you want out, that's your choice, not mine. Just say the word and it can be arranged." Sarah smiled precociously at him. What on earth were they talking about? What did Samuel have to do with what had happened? "I think it's best that you return to the US and stop messing with everyone else's lives. I thought you were staying in Florida. God knows what you are going to do now about yesterday's fiasco. You will lose your driving license." He began pouring his own drink. "It's fine. I'll just get a driver." She shrugged. Every part of my body wanted to run at her and unleash all my anger. But I knew Sarah, and it wouldn't make the blindest bit of difference. So I knew I had to be better and stronger than she was. I waltzed into the room like it was my own. "So, what part did you have in the club fiasco with Hugo and Casey then, Samuel?" I reached up to the cupboard to get a glass, pouring myself a drink to join them both. "None. No part whatsoever," Samuel said instantly. "Well," Sarah said quietly under her breath. "Oh, go on then, Sarah. What do I not know?" I asked, hoping she would explain. Samuel looked aggrieved. "Esme, let's talk about this separately, when I can explain the situation. But I had nothing to do with what happened to Casey." He moved closer to me and put his hand on my arm for reassurance. I shrugged it off immediately. Sarah beamed with delight at the thought that this was causing friction between the two of us. "Oh, don't hold back on my account, Samuel. Why don't we discuss it now? I'd love you to explain the situation for Emma to hear." She took a sip of her drink and waited for one of us to speak next. "Esmeralda," I corrected her yet again. "Okay, let's do this. I'm not afraid of Esme knowing the truth." He looked quite worried, but I was ready for what was about to come. "A few years back, when things were tough, not long after my father was starting to go downhill and Richard had made some poor investment choices, we were at risk of the family business crashing." He stopped. "And, well, there was an Albanian firm that helped us out financially." Samuel shuffled from foot to foot. "So, you mean a business loan?" I questioned. "You could say that," Sarah muttered. "It gave the business the cash injection we needed to get it back on its feet, so we could correct the bad decisions and reinvest sensibly. That should have been the end of it. The money was paid back, and that was that. Or so I thought." Samuel turned his glare to Sarah. Clearly there was still some animosity between the two of them, but since that point I have not been involved. "So what was the issue at the club? Who turned up looking for you, Sarah? And why was Casey mistaken for you?" I asked. "Oh, that. It was just a simple misunderstanding. Nothing to do with the last deal, that's all. Sarah seemed far too blasé for my liking. I can confirm Samuel hasn't been involved recently. It's a shame, really. Excuse me. I could feel the blood boiling in my veins. How dare you? My best friend is lying in a coma because of something you are messed up with. It's your fault if she doesn't recover. The fact that you don't even care is... I think that is enough for one night. Samuel held both my arms. If he hadn't, I think I would have tried hitting her. Sarah, you can go in the spare room. Esmeralda, let's go up. He pulled at my arm. No, I hadn't finished. Not by a long shot. We are done. Samuel raised his voice and stood before me. He meant business, and it was my cue to do as I was told. She isn't listening. She is drunk. I will speak to her in the morning. I want to know everything about why she has got back involved with them, what on earth is going on, and what she is going to do to put things right. It has nothing to do with me, but I do not want this affecting us, the business, or any of your friends in the future, and if it means me pulling myself from the business in its entirety to avoid losing you, then so be it. He took a deep breath and stood still, waiting for my reaction. Samuel had the final word. The three of us headed to our rooms like naughty children, each of us raging inside but admitting defeat till the morning. It was hard trusting someone so close to me when I knew their history and background. I wanted to believe Samuel in that they had needed an Albanian business for financial stability, but believing they weren't working with them anymore was a little difficult to stomach. How could I be sure that he hadn't had something to do with the guys who had attacked Casey, and we were all now caught up in their fiasco? Did Samuel seem cagey, or was I reading too much into it? He sat on the edge of the bed and gave out the biggest exhalation of air. I know you don't believe me, Esme, but I'm telling you the truth. I gave up bad business years ago. I'm tired of all this. I had nothing to do with Sarah and her current dealings. He kept his head hanging, his eyes at the floor. I said nothing. Instead, I waited for him to lean back and roll onto his side of the bed. I got into the other side without saying a word. There were two things more important than Sarah, and whether Samuel was involved, and that was Casey puling through and solving this case in the memory of Cordelia Jones. Just as I was finally about to set my alarm and switch the bedside light off, my phone lit up. I quickly scrabbled it in case it was news about Casey. Hunter's name popped up. I flicked open the locked screen to reveal his text. Just thought you might want to know. Nicholas Farraday arrested this afternoon on suspicion of stalking. He's being held at the station for questioning. HX.